All right, my spooky friends. Today, we're going to take a little break from all them ghosts and monsters and join a couple of friends of mine who like to drink beer and talk true crime. How does that sound for a good, relaxing holiday weekend? That's right. So, on today's Feet Swap Saturday, we're bringing an episode of a podcast called Brew Crime, a show hosted by a couple funny guys who like to talk about some, well, not so funny stuff. And I think if you're looking for a respite from all the dark I bring to maybe this might be a little palate cleanser, or at least in the way that true crime could. I don't know. Look, I'm talking too much. Y'all just go ahead. If you enjoy this episode of Brew Crime, please go follow them today on your favorite podcasting app. That's Brew Crime. Now, here we go.
Welcome to Brew Crime, the podcast where we drink brews, talk crime, conspiracies, or whatever catches our attention. This is Mike and my co-host.
They're always after me, Lucky Charms. Just follow your nose. Silly rabbit tricks are for kids. They're great. It's me, JT, and I'm making a cereal pun.
Yes, for good reason, because we're going to get into serial killers today and next week.
I appreciate the fact that you put up with me and that the show puts up with my impulses, because I did have an impulse there and I did pull those out of my ass, and
it was great. All right, well, what have you done lately that didn't suck? Because the world sucks.
Yeah, so I am not a fan of J.K. Rowling.
No.
Primarily her viewpoints on human beings, and I don't usually go out of my way to give her empire money.
Yes.
What I did find, and there's no but here because I still didn't give money, through the library, I found the book series, the Harry Potter book series, and it's narrated by Stephen Fry. And I don't know if you know Stephen Fry. He's a comedian. He had a sketch comedy show with Hugh Laurie back in the day on BBC. But
yeah.
Stephen Fry narrates the books, and he does the characters and all. It's very, dramatic reading.
Yeah.
And holy shit, it's amazing.
Nice.
It's phenomenal. And I appreciate all the work that goes into those, having done something or tried to do something like it myself in the past.
Yeah.
And he truly is really talented. I'm getting back to my childhood, but listening to a narrated version through the library. Her Gringotts Bank is cavernous.
Yes.
Take that however you wish.
Yes, I will. I guess I'll just say that I just finished watching season 2 of The Last of Us. And it is such an amazing show. I'm sad that they ended it where they did, because I don't want to wait 2 years to see where it goes, because that's what it's going to take probably. All right. Well, serial killers.
Serial killers. So obviously I certainly had a choice of what to pick.
Yes, you did.
There's a lot of them, but I decided, well, let's just go this way. I'm calling this a murderous mixtape. So to properly introduce the case of the Hart brothers, one has to kind of first acknowledge the absurdity of discussing serial killers from an era when cereal likely referred to a breakfast grain or perhaps a persistent cough. Yet here we are, staring down the barrel of a historic true crime rabbit hole, which is a journey that promises to be less an academic study and more a fever dream concocted from cheap whiskey and the faint scene of fear.
Uh-oh.
Somehow I did this to myself. So imagine, if you will, the late 18th century American frontier. It was untamed land before we, coughed all over it, peed on it, and called it ours. You know what? Before I make my "we stole this land" joke, my pairing is from the far reaches of not beer at all, and I decided that since this was kind of out there as a case, I was going to go out there, and I chose, and by chose I mean it was right beside me, and I just grabbed a cup. Seagram's Lime Twisted Gin, and I'm drinking that straight with some rock ice cubes, and that's what I needed tonight. So
And he's drinking Canadian owned booze. So good job.
hell yeah, support the Canucks.
Yeah, man.
All right, so you know the frontier was untamed land before we coughed all over it, peed on it, and called it ours. It was a time of dubious dental hygiene and an almost pathological aversion to anything resembling proper law enforcement. It was into this godforsaken landscape that Micaiah and Wiley Harp, who were known as Big and Little Harp, so clever, emerged.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't not as pioneers taming the wild, but something way more unsettling. They were, in essence, the very worst road trip companions.
Oh, no.
If the road trip involved a string of opportunistic mayhem, casual dismemberment, and disregard for manners, not murdering
Okay.
families, it was for them.
Of course.
Now, their story isn't one for the faint of heart, nor for those who prefer their historical narratives neatly packaged with a bow of clarity. This tale is splattered with blood, grime, and the kind of desperation that can only arise when confronted with two men who seemingly embrace depravity with the abandon of a tourist discovering an all-you-can-eat buffet. Woo-hoo!
Oh, God.
Right? So we're talking about a kind of wanderlust, which a truly American impulse to keep moving, just with a massive amount more of scalping. So buckle up, buttercups, because what follows is not a pretty picture, but it is without a doubt a uniquely American one. Perhaps if anything comes out of this, we're going to have a better understanding of just how truly wild the Wild West was before it was even called the Wild West.
Yeah.
So, where did the Harp brothers, Micaiah and Wiley, Big Harp and, less imaginatively one might argue, Little Harp, spring from? Well, they seemingly originated in Orange County, North Carolina. This is actually a place I drove through every time I drive to Greensboro, North Carolina for graduate school. So, that's fun, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Just like with anything historical, scholars also say that it's possible their family hailed from Scotland before settling in the colonies. Precise birth years for frontier figures kind of hover in the realm of best guess. But Micaiah is generally believed to have been born around 1768 and Wiley around 1770. So when I say I reached back in the annals, I really almost lost my arm in pull-out drawer. So,
in the anals.
In the anals. Dude, I just had PTSD from high school. Have I told you that story?
I don't think so.
I was talking about how I was reading in our social studies book. It was 10th grade, and I was reading about King Richard and how he annulled his marriage, and I said he annulled his marriage, and I never lived it the fuck down, because I think that if you've annulled your marriage, you've ended your marriage. Without consent. That's all I'm saying.
It's gone down the shitter for sure.
That needs to go on a t-shirt. That's all I'm saying. So their early lives are kind of covered in this fog of sparse records and a kind of a sensationalized legend. But what we do know, or at least what I was able to find, is that their family, specifically their dad, also named Wiley Harp, along with their uncle, William Harp, sided with the British during the Revolutionary War. Now, this is a particularly important detail in their brand of what I like to call frontier psychosis. Now,
Ruh-roh.
imagine, if you will, being on the losing side of a messy, violent conflict and then being subtly, or not so subtly, encouraged to relocate to the edges of a new nation that wasn't exactly sympathetic to loyalist sympathies. Like, talk about your nationwide rejection, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're going to have a complex after that. And now, to Mike, I have a feeling the fact that they were royalist sympathizers spurred a couple thoughts in you that could only be likened to the reaction a man gets when a lubed finger goes probing. By the way, if you are of age, have your prostate checked, even if they don't take you out on a date first. Just make sure they aren't a dentist, because that's not where your teeth are, I hope. So Mike, what are you thinking about this so far?
Oh my. I'm not a big royalist myself, so burn them. No, I'm just kidding.
Burn the witch.
Burn the witch. Do they float?
Turned me into a newt. That got better. That's one of my favorite monologues from Monty Python and the Holy Grail was like, just because some watery tot hands you a sword. It was so fucking funny.
Yep.
I didn't vote for you. Well, of course you didn't vote for me. Who are you? All right. For anybody who's a Monty Python fan, that was not very spot on. If you're not a Monty Python fan, that was a spot on impression of Monty Python.
And what's wrong with you?
Right. Also that, for sure. I mean, anyways, like in terms of this rejection, it's enough to give a person a chip on their shoulder the size of a Budweiser Clydesdale. Now, before their infamous reign of terror, the Harps spent several years living among the Cherokees in what is now southeast Tennessee, around the village of Nickajack. Not to be confused with Nickelback. I'd like to not be canceled today. Thank you. Which is funny because if that's what cancels me, fuck. It was worth it. It was worth 5 cents. It's a curious chapter hinting at a period of adaptation to the harsh frontier. They likely used that time to kind of hone skills in hunting, trapping, foraging, and tracking. Although in their case, it seems that they also pulled some of the more unsavory lessons in livestock rustling, property raiding, other methods of best torturing and killing enemies, semantics.
Yeah.
It's definitely not something that I thought would be a skill on the Oregon Trail game, but to each their own.
I mean, everyone died on the Oregon Trail game, so.
Oh, I made it a couple of times.
You got dysentery.
But I healed.
They'll murder if you diss Terry Crews.
Listen, I made it. I was a lot lighter, but I made it.
Oh, you only shit yourself half to death.
There's still a half of me left.
That's true. Top or bottom.
By that point, everything came out the bottom. So around 1775, they left North Carolina, working as overseers on a slave plantation in Virginia, which, not a proud part of history.
Yeah.
In my book, anyways.
I'm guessing they weren't working 9 to 5, trying to make a living.
They might have been, but if working means like in a rocking chair staring down slaves, sure.
Yeah.
By 1797, they'd ended up near Knoxville, Tennessee, where Wiley reportedly married a local woman named Sarah Rice. Big Harp, meanwhile, was traveling with at least 2 women, like a frontier player. He traveled with Susan and Betsy Roberts, and each of them had his children. Their exact relationship with each other is not included in any place that I could find.
Because people didn't care. They were just women, right?
Right.
Unfortunately.
So let's just say it's ambiguous and it's not a subgenre on Pornhub.
That we
Frontier
know of.
threesome, not popular apparently. Oh, prime form tonight. So there is even the mention of Mary Harp, believed to be Macasia's sister, who also traveled with them at various times along with their kids. And it was in this Knoxville era that their more overt, I almost said covert. No. Overt criminal activity started. This began with their comparatively boring acts of stealing pigs, horses, other livestock, but this was all just an opening act. They were about to embark on a much more gruesome performance of unchecked violence.
I just checked. Frontier threesome is not something on there.
I accidentally got it right. I don't know. All right, so the Harps, bless their depraved little hearts, were never ones to be satisfied with mere barnyard robbery. They needed something bigger to put on their resume from hell.
Yeah.
Their ambition, it turned out, stretched far beyond a few pilfered porkers, which is a lot harder to say, actually, than I thought it might be.
Yes.
When I was writing it, I was like, I got this.
What
Pilfered
are they
porkers.
like? Pantera, like Far Beyond Driven?
Pantera's pilfered porkers. Say that 3 times fast. Fuck.
I was meaning Far Beyond Driven, but yes.
So the real horror show began in late 1797 and early 1798, which was a period that saw their activities move from petty theft to a spree of senseless violence that leaves a blood-soaked trail across Tennessee and Kentucky, which should be easy to follow for Inspector Gadget.
Right?
It was as if they decided that stealing livestock was simply too much effort, and that a more efficient business model would be to simply take whatever they wanted, including the lives of anyone who stood in their way, and honestly, anyone who didn't as well. Their standards were about as low as the USA with politicians. A bazinga. So their victims were, for the most part, innocent travelers, isolated settlers, and even their own crying infant. By the way, trigger warning: crimes,
Uh-oh.
crime against child or two. So just letting you know,
Mm,
these were not dashing highwaymen. Like you wouldn't find Brad Pitt or Johnny Depp able to play them. Maybe Johnny Depp. There were rather like they were wild-eyed, unkempt men with an unsettling level of predatory intent. They simply murdered, and often with a brutal, casual indifference. They'd kill for a horse, a few coins, or for no reason whatsoever. It was
oh my.
as if the act of taking a life provided them life or provided them satisfaction. It was kind of a dark game that they played. So around 1797, when most folks were trying to figure out if their newfangled republic was going to stick, the Hart brothers decided to embark on a different kind of American experiment. And by
Yeah.
that I mean a cross-country murder spree. This wasn't some quiet, polite series of disappearances. This was loud, messy, and frankly an unhinged tour of mayhem through Tennessee, Kentucky, and even a bit of Illinois. You know what they say. They say you never go full Illinois. Never go full Illinois. Not once.
Never.
Not even Michael Jordan. He always kept a little bit of North Carolina in him.
Okay, yes. No bull.
No, no. Hmm. Ah. So I'm going to bury the lead here. Eventually, they confessed to killing a confirmed 39 people. But the smart money, and frankly, the whispers, put the body count at over 50. These guys,
Eee.
yeah, they weren't really picky eaters. Like, if you had a pulse, you're going to be on the menu.
Yeah.
Even babies, which, let's be honest, it's a really, really high bar for unpleasant.
Yeah.
Most people, when they get run out of town, it's for something embarrassing. Maybe you cheated at cards, or you had a really bad smelling hog. Take that how you will. But not the Harps. Back in 1797, near Knoxville, Tennessee, they got the boot for the usual pig and horse theft, which, fine. That's par for the course for the frontier. But then authorities found a local fella named Johnson in a river, chest cut open, full of rocks. And because these guys were nothing if not thorough, apparently covered in urine.
Jesus.
That whole, in quotes, weighing down the body with rocks thing became their signature move. It's like kind of their brand, only instead of a cool logo, it was just like a lot of dead people underwater. Not something you put on a t-shirt.
Not really, no. Not a good one, at least.
Kentucky's second governor, James Garrard, must have been having a particularly rough Tuesday on April 22nd, 1799, because he put a $300 reward on each harp head. Now, that's over $5,700 in today's money per head, which for back then was basically like winning the lottery.
Yeah.
After their little, quote, unpleasantness in Knoxville, the Harps skipped north into Kentucky, hitting the wilderness road near the Cumberland Gap. Their travel itinerary was less scenic and more grisly murder pilgrimage. First, a peddler named Peyton went missing, along with his horse and some of his wares. Then, two unfortunate souls from Maryland checked out permanently. Next up, John Langford, traveling from Virginia, who was a local innkeeper with a keen eye for suspicious blood-soaked drifters. That person pointed the finger at the Harps.
Yeah,
Now,
that would be something. Yep.
Yeah. These guys struck me as fellas that would just travel with blood in their beards. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
now, believe it or not, they actually were caught and jailed in Danville, Kentucky. I know, right?
Yeah.
Like
Uh-oh.
you almost expect a sitcom moment where they try to pass off a shiv as a whittled bird or something. But
Right?
these guys were pros at escaping, and as a special thank you to the local who helped authorities, they murdered and mutilated his young son in an act of pure unadulterated spite.
Jesus. Now, did they use a poster to hide their escape? Rita Hayworth?
All I'm saying is if it was Rita Hayworth, I need to have a conversation with Doc. Body! So they then decided to crash at Cave in Rock on the Ohio River, which is a charming little spot that served as a
Yeah.
hideout for river pirates led by Samuel Mason. And yes, it was indeed called Cave in Rock. Hmm.
Yikes.
Now, listen, when you're a serial killer so repugnant that river pirates kick you out, you know you're
Yeah.
a new certain kind of low.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
the Mason gang, who were known for their own brand of ruthless thuggery on flatboats, which honestly, thuggery on flatboats is a perfect punk rock band name, was they were reportedly appalled by the Harp's antics, and probably their nicknames too. Uh,
Yeah.
Apparently, taking travelers to the top of the bluff, stripping them naked, and pushing them off was a bridge too far, even for pirates. It seems Mason had a, quote, no unnecessary nudity and cliff tossing policy, which, honestly, fair enough. So,
Nah.
with their wives, and unfortunately their three children still in tow, the Harps were politely but firmly asked to leave. They then returned to eastern Tennessee, probably muttering about the lack of common decency among their fellow criminals. I just imagine like Mason being like, get out. And they're like, but it's an art form, man. So back in Tennessee, it was back to business as usual. They dispatched a farmer named Bradbury, a man named Hardin, a boy named Coffee. More bodies piled up. William Ballard disemboweled and dumped in the Holston River, which is another signature of theirs. James Brassel throat slashed. John Tully. Mr. John Graves and his teenage son were found bludgeoned with an axe in south central Kentucky. A young girl, a young slave, and an entire sleeping family in Logan County all met their ends at the hands of the Harps. So, with their, quote, family consisting of Micaiah Wiley and their various companions, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, Susan, Betsy, and Sarah, along with their unlucky children, they traveled. They all saw these horrific actions firsthand. Now, I can't imagine the psychological toll that this took on them, or at the very least, the desensitization that occurred,
Yeah.
which, by the way, really hard to say after 2 glasses of gin. But I'd be interested to see how far trauma like that followed up the family tree. And it's important to say that the women were not always like willing participants. Like they were often
Yeah.
forced into their roles, living under consistent threat. Now they were in their own way victims as well. Then in August of 1799, near Russellville, Kentucky, Micaiah Harp committed the one act he reportedly felt genuine remorse for. He bashed his own infant daughter's head against a tree because she wouldn't stop crying.
Oh my God. I want to bash his head against a tree now.
I mean, like, let that sink in. Like, this man had murdered dozens, possibly scores of people. And the only thing that apparently, like, pricked his conscience was being annoyed by a baby. That same month, a man named Trowbridge was found disemboweled. Finally, when the Harps were given shelter at the Stagel home, they killed an overnight guest, Major William Love, followed by Mrs. Moses Stegall's 4-month-old baby boy. Also, I would like to say, for crying. And then they killed Mrs. Stegall herself when she had the audacity to scream. They are truly a special kind of monster.
Yes.
So the scale of this pair's crimes and the utterly motiveless nature of many of them began to bring the scattered settlements together, which is really saying something if you think about it. Like there was no Twitter. Honestly, quite honestly, at that point, they're lucky that there was anything written because not a lot of people could do it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, while law enforcement in the late 18th century was more of a loose suggestion than an actual system, the Harps were so reckless that they created their own posse of enraged settlers ready to deal out justice on their own terms. The word spread like wildfire through the towns and isolated cabins. 2 men, possibly brothers, were on a rampage, leaving a trail of death wherever they went. It was essentially a call to arms,
Yeah.
or rather a desperate plea for self-preservation in a land where justice often meant taking matters into your own capable and very angry hands.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'd be angry too if the bathroom was outside.
It took a lot longer to get places back then. So, yeah, it took a lot longer for justice.
Yeah. So, I mean, but like, can you just imagine what the word spreading would have looked like? I mean, word of mouth, sure. But but I'd rather imagine it as a frontier version of the musical West Side Story's Jet song. And
Hmm.
that goes like this. Because, of course, I wrote a parody.
Of course.
When you're a settler all the way from your first killing to your last dying day. When you're a settler, if the harps come around, keep your head down and don't make a sound. Well, the buzz is going round. They're moving through the trees, leaving folks like scarecrows blowing in the breeze. They ain't got no reason. They just like the bloody sight, and every single cabin's living in the fright. Okay, so now that's out of my system. The widespread fear of the settlers turned into vengeful rage. And this wasn't an abstract concept of crime,
Hmm.
nor were they crime adjacent. Like, this was the town folks' neighbor, cousin, kid. They were found gutted in a ditch or having simply vanished into the wilderness without so much as a whisper as to where they
Yeah.
went. In the Revolutionary era United States, and as mentioned earlier, law and order was less a functioning system and more a polite suggestion scribbled on a damp napkin by Dudley Do Right. And some might argue that this is still the case. There were, I put that in there just for you.
Yes.
There were no neatly uniformed people. There was no forensics team dusting for fingerprints. Now, due to the work many did, I'm sure they didn't have many prints left if they even had fingers. It's
Yeah.
probably more a symbol at this point. Justice, when it came, was a DIY project, administered with a long rifle, which I wonder if that's where they got the long arm of the law phrase. Although it could be
Maybe.
from one goofy looking motherfucker who was a sheriff. One of the two. I don't know. So, thus, all that to say, the posses were born.
Hmm.
Not from official decrees or government permission, but from the fury of people pushed to their breaking point. These were not professional bounty hunters. They were farmers, trappers, grief stricken. The word harp, whispered from cabin to cabin, became synonymous with terror. And the call to arms wasn't even a bugle call, but a desperate, a little help here, carried by the wind.
Yeah. It's just funny because when you think of you said bugle, and I'm like playing a harp. Terrifying.
Just like fucking just harpo marks just playing the harp like, oh, I
Yeah.
can't talk, but here it is.
Such like a
um
pretty sound. Fucking run.
right, honestly, watching a bunch of people run towards the camera away from another bunch of people and having a harp being the music is hysterical to me. I
Yes.
don't know why, but and honestly, if it's the harp doing the like,
Yep.
I might try to put that together because that's pretty damn funny. All right. So early attempts to track the harps were kind of a mix of amateur tracking and sheer luck. The wilderness of Tennessee and Kentucky, while providing cover for the harps, also presented an extremely large challenge for the folks of the area. I mean, it's not like you could say head to the Titans Stadium.
Yeah.
Blech. So imagine like trying to find two needles in a haystack the size of several small countries, especially when those needles were actively engaged in the process of, oh, I don't know, murdering anyone who got too close. One of the earliest, most notable figures to take up the chase was Henry Skaggs. Henry was born in 1724, and Skaggs was a seasoned frontiersman. He was a legendary long gun hunter whose life reads like a survival guide written by a grizzly bear.
Uh-oh.
Truly, like when I heard, that's all I can describe him as. I heard Henry Skaggs, and I was like, this sounds like Mike. Just badass. He knew the woods intimately, which is a weird thing to say, but you catch my meaning.
Yes, yes. He made
He
love to
had
trees, yes.
Yes, he had an amazing listen, he had deep roots. He had an
Mm.
amazing ability to track. His bark is worse than his bite. In 1799, he led a pursuit driven by the escalating reports. His efforts, though ultimately unsuccessful in apprehending the brothers at that specific time, showed the desperation of the communities. He was a local hero who stepped up where official authority simply didn't exist. He and his men scoured the forest. He kind of reminds me of the fellow who does equine search in Texas. I can't remember his name, Tim something, I think. But he has found multiple missing persons and
Okay.
solved cases with all kinds of things, not just like, horses and
Yeah.
stuff, but all kinds of stuff. Anyway, so like I said, he followed the trails, he interrogated locals, but the harps, like phantoms, always seemed to vanish just as they were getting close to grabbing them by the collar. The team relied on tracking. They could read signs left by travelers, like a broken twig, a disturbed patch of moss, the impression of a boot in soft earth, which is very hippie sounding, to be honest with you.
But it's like such an old way to find people.
Oh, absolutely. They also used word of mouth. That was the primary intelligence network. Travelers, peddlers, and even terrified women who had escaped the harp's clutches provided vital, if sometimes conflicting, information.
Yeah.
There was local knowledge, of course. Settlers knew hidden caves, remote river crossings, isolated cabins. And then there was the power of the belligerent mob. Now, while not always efficient, the sheer number of armed, angry men could exert pressure, which forced the harps to keep moving, thus making them more vulnerable to discovery or making mistakes.
Yeah.
Now, despite their persistent efforts, and don't excuse my French, but welcome it and embrace it, the harps were elusive little fuckers. They moved quickly. They often on stolen horses and were ruthless in silencing any witnesses. Their tactics involved avoiding populated areas, sticking to the wildest, most untrodden paths, and leaving a wake of such unspeakable violence that anyone who encountered them was either dead or too terrified to speak. It was a cat and mouse game played on a landscape that swallowed secrets whole. And for a terrifying period, the cat seemed to be losing.
Not terrifying at all, yeah.
The frontier, it seemed, was not just a place where justice was rough. It was a place where justice sometimes felt like a cosmic joke. Yeah, it was a time where, your security system wasn't ADT, it was a fucking Labrador. Probably not even that at that point. Maybe a rooster.
No, it was just straight up ADD.
Yeah, right. Just
you can't sleep, you've got security.
Right. But, just like a magician who can't get it done perfectly 100% of the time, they're going to make a mistake. And I know that for a fact because I talked to a magician's wife.
Oh,
Between that and their luck running thin and the fact that their escalating crimes and horrors created a collective resolve, they were going to get caught. The turning point came August 1799 after a particularly heinous act. Macasia, as if none of the other ones were,
right.
Macasia Harp, with his usual chilling indifference, murdered a woman, Moses DeGaull's wife, and infant near Henderson, Kentucky. I mentioned this earlier. Moses wasn't going to let this slide. He, along with a determined posse, which included John Leiper, a man with a prior non-fatal encounter with Big Harp, and a certain Captain James Barry, launched a pursuit. But this wasn't a stroll. This was a blood hunt. And the chase culminated in Muhlenberg County, Kentucky. The posse, hot on their trail, finally cornered the harps in a dense canebrake, which is, because I did look this one up, a thicket of tall bamboo-like plants, which, by the way, now that I say that out loud, I used to have like a fort or a club inside of canebrake. It's so much fun. Like, if you can make paths and stuff, like, that is a very dense thing to be in. But it was the perfect place for a desperate stand. In the ensuing confrontation, Macasia Big Harp was shot. The bullet fired by John Leiper struck him in the spine, effectively immobilizing that man who terrorized the frontier. Now, what followed was less an arrest and more a scene from a Western pulp novel, because reasons that I'm about to explain. As Macasia lay wounded, Moses DeGaulle approached the fallen man. And as we know, Moses' wife and infant son were killed by them with a butcher knife. And while Macasia was still conscious, he exacted revenge by decapitating him.
Oh, snap.
Then, the severed head, we are not too far removed from England, mind you. The severed head was taken to a crossroads in present-day Webster County, Kentucky, and placed on a pole as a gruesome warning to any other outlaws. It was a barbaric message that resonated across the scattered settlements because, duh, what the fuck?
Shit.
And by the way, I'm not saying whether he did or did not deserve it. Fucking, he did deserve it. So I am saying it. But also, like, and like at that point, there was no justice system, really. That
No.
was the justice system. Justice is my Bowie knife. All right. So that was Big Harp. Wily Little Harp, however, he managed to escape the scene of his brother's demise and he vanished back into the wilderness. Now, for a few years, he continued his life of crime.
Damn.
He drifted south, reportedly joining up with a river pirate again. He decided to come back to Cave in River or Cave on whatever that was that I said, named Samuel Mason, along the Natchez Trace, which was a perilous path infamous for outlaws. So he basically became more of a river guy and less of a mountain guy.
Yeah.
um,
Hey, why not, right?
right. He had to change his Tinder account. Which
Swipe
really
right.
wasn't it was a literal Tinder account because that's how they made fires.
It's
But
true.
they eventually reached even Little Harp. In 1803, a significant reward was offered for the capture or head of Samuel Mason. Wiley, ever the opportunist, decided to collect on the bounty. He,
course.
along with an accomplice named May, cue Justin Timberlake joke, ambushed and killed Mason, then cut off his head and presented it to authorities in Mississippi to claim the reward.
Damn. That's hard.
The plan was almost brilliant.
Almost.
Exactly what I wrote in all caps. Almost. But the problem was that it relied on one fatal flaw. Someone recognized him. Duh.
Oh.
A man named John Bowman from Tennessee, who had seen Wiley in the Danville jail years prior, identified him as Little Harp, and the gig was up. Wiley and his accomplice, despite a desperate attempt to escape from custody, he was a slippery one. They were recaptured. In January of 1804, Wiley, Harp, and May were tried in Greenville, Mississippi, which honestly, even today, if I was tried in Greenville, Mississippi, I would just sign up for the express path to death.
Mm-hmm.
They were found guilty of robbery, and they were indeed sentenced to death. And that's right. They weren't sentenced to death after being found guilty of decapitation or filling bodies with rocks. They were found guilty of robbery. Robbery equals death.
That's wild.
On February 8th, 1804, Wiley Little Harp was hanged. And in a chillingly consistent echo of his brother's fate, his head, along with May's, was also severed and placed on stakes along the Natchez Trace, which was a final gruesome monument to America's first true serial killers. The heads served as silent, rotting sentinels.
Jeez.
So, there you have it, the saga of the Harp brothers, Micajah and Wiley. Or were they cousins? Or just two guys who really, really hated loud noises in anyone else's existence? The details are, they're a bit
A little
murky.
hazy. Yeah.
Right, as I said in the beginning, like your IPA. You know, lost to history and kind of a collective amnesia brought on by pure terror and the fact that, in general, we humans are goldfish. Now, what's clear is that
Just keep winning. Just keep
at least
winning.
4 years. We forget every 4 years. What's clear is that these two trailblazers of serial murder left a legacy that wasn't exactly sterling. No commemorative stamps, no cheerful theme park rides, just a lot of severed heads on poles. So, you know, most folks, when they decide to pick up and move to a new frontier, they're looking for opportunity. It's a fresh start, maybe a little parcel of land to call their own. I just want a farm. The Harps, on the other hand, apparently saw the American wilderness as a giant, undifferentiated blob of human inconvenience, ripe for dismemberment. It's almost ambitious in a proudly disturbing way. Proudly, profoundly. I did not mean proudly. They didn't just want to survive, they wanted to thrive if thriving meant systematically eliminating anyone who crossed their path. But their end, honestly, perfectly fitting. I'm not really sad about it, to be completely honest. Decapitation by enraged victim, following by a starring role as a roadside riverside attraction. It's a grim performance art piece. That's all. It wasn't neat or tidy, but neither is the justice system, and it makes you think, well, that's one way to handle a problem.
Yeah.
So while we don't have a clear understanding of their motives, because honestly, who the fuck could understand that? But it's a reminder of the chaos that defined that American frontier, that wild Midwest. I don't know.
Yeah.
It
I don't know.
it makes you kind of appreciate modern amenities, like just kind of walking down the street without wondering if some guy named Big is going to come out from behind a bush with bad intentions.
Yeah. Play harp in
The
front of
moral,
you.
the moral of this case is it's the little things,
Yes.
and that is the Hart brothers,
Oh my. They're not nice
right?
dudes. Not nice dudes.
No, not at all. And the more I read about it, the more I was like, holy shit. You know, what's interesting to me is that actually this is fascinating to me is that as media, newspapers, those things became more prevalent, knowledge about these things became less, which you'd
Yeah.
think it'd be the opposite way. Like then, including your fellas thing that you explained the week before
Yeah.
in Toronto, like it was probably harder to find a jury. Well,
Yeah.
easier if you're racist, but harder to find a jury then because everybody read the paper. Now we're
Yeah.
so saturated with all this bullshit. Nobody could pay attention to all of it. So the chances of finding somebody who knows nothing about it, like for instance the Karen retrial that retrial that's happening
Yeah.
now, it's probably a lot easier than we think. But you know, sometimes someone's actions just happen to call for decapitation. That's all I'm saying. Not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying at all. Like that shouldn't happen, you know. But also, like truly, like there was no justice. There was no
Yeah.
justice department. There was no justice branch. There was no like we had just signed a document, you know.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, it's sometimes it's hard to argue there's justice today, but
right,
there was no justice then.
we were digging the basement of the Capitol, and it just so happened that Big and Little Harp filled the basement with bodies.
Yep.
Which
Did they storm it?
honestly, the congressman could have done it themselves. So like like we didn't need your help, guys.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I leave you with that. You know, it's a dark story, and you know,
Mhm.
two kids. I mean, the thought I cannot ever say, and of course I'd never admit to it anyways, but I can't say that the thought ever crossed my mind that my infant son, one of the two, is crying a lot. There's a tree. Let me just whack. Like
Let me just quiet it down a bit.
that's insane. Um
Yes.
insane. And I really wish that there was more on them in their early life because I quite honestly think they were just shit. I don't think anything happened other than the typical stressors and
Yeah.
relationships. I think they were just assholes of
Terrible people. Yeah.
like the Red Bull of assholes. You know what I mean? Like they were doing backflips on their bikes being assholes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the harps.
Uh,
What I did not expect any of that shit when I saw the two names and I was like, "Oh, Big and Little, that's kind of cute. Let's see what they did." And I was like, "Whoa." Oh.
I mean, they were serial killers.
True. True. It's very
True,
true.
true.
Before the word before killer was even really popular. I mean, like forget fuck cereal. You know what I mean? It's just it is out of this world
Yeah.
how they were able to avoid. But then I think 100% undeveloped land. Of
Yeah.
course they could.
100%. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in to Brew Crime. You can find us on all social media platforms at Brew Crime. We have a Facebook group at Brew Crime the Group. If you'd like to support the show, head to patreon.com/brewcrime now. The money goes towards upgrading equipment and making the show that much better. You get one bonus episode a month, as well as early ad-free access to our episodes. So shout out to our Patreon supporters, True Crime Nana, 3 Beers In, and the faves of our lives. Bye.
If you take anything from this case, always look for snapped twigs, disturbed moss, or boots in soft earth.
And a beautiful harp.
And you'll be confronted with Bear Grylls, who is nothing like the harps and everything like the harps at the same time.
Oh my. Bye.
Oh, give me another cup of gin.
All cases in Brew Crime are written by Mike and JT or a writer we credit on the episode, and sources are put into our show notes for each episode. We always want to give credit to the people that research the cases we talk about. Check out our store at tpublic.com/stores/brew-crime-podcast, where you can purchase gear like t-shirts, phone cases, stickers, pillows, and all kinds of other cool stuff. Brew Crime's intro was created by Mike using Creative Commons Attribution licensed audio from purple-planet.com, soundbible.com, and freesoundeffects.com. Logo designed by Ben Greenberg. Thanks for listening to this episode of Brew Crime Podcast.
I'm Dean, I'm the dad.
I'm Laura, I'm the mom.
And I'm Arthur, I'm the son.
And together we are...
Family Plot.
Plot Podcast is the best history podcast that we can make.
Like intellectual pancakes for the soul.
I've been called the cool dad you want to take a road trip with and learn about history from.
One of our listeners said listening to me was like Mom reading you a bedtime story full of cool history, and I am here for it.
And one of our reviewers called me the snarky brother they wish they had.
So join us to learn some cool stuff,
to hear some fun banter and wild tangents.
And we are unabashedly LGBTQ friendly and trans positive and supportive.
And remember,
when you listen,
you're our family.
So join us and occasionally some very cool guests
for the Family Plot Podcast.
Available wherever you get your podcasts.
You have a face that says something's wrong.
I don't know if it's my headphones or if it's the feed popping a little bit and stuff. The audio.
I'm not hearing popping.
If you're not hearing it, it's probably me. Let me just reconnect my headphones quickly.
Okay.
1 sec. Hello.
This is the song that never ends.
Hopefully that works. Sometimes
okay.
It's one of those little tiny dongles for Bluetooth that I have on my computer, so it's not always wonderful.
Do you know what I think kind of really plays into my imposter syndrome? I still laugh at the word dongle.
No, it's just because we're both 12 years old at heart.
Right. Okay, so eventually they confessed. Confessed?
You buried it for sure.
They confessed. Sometimes he'd tell people to leaf it. His efforts. None of that is written in here. I should stop.
You branched off from your script.
I sure did. You're darn tootin'. That their tactics avoided. Sorry. Good God, that was 5 sneezes. No human should sneeze 5 times. I think I threw my heart off rhythm.
Uh-oh.
But just like last week's Magusta masturbation, like it just comes to me.
I guess you're just a frosted flake. Which is even worse after you just said comes to me. That puts a whole new. You know what? If I'm not a frosted flake, I am a Fruit Loop. So okay, there we go. Yeah. A little bit of Captain Crunch there.
They were crunchy, yes.
Oh, yes.